And from the mobile provider to the mobile marketeer. Now meet the global marketeer who is really making this happening in a big way. This is the story of Mondelez International and how they're already pledging that 10% of their budget would be devoted to mobile marketing. And this is a company that is very much putting mobile first. And to tell us all about it is the Vice President of Global Media and Consumer Engagement at Mondelez International, Bonin Bough.
Hello. How are you, Miami? Good? Woo! Okay. I'm very excited to be here, as you can clearly tell. Partially because, so I've been speaking, this is Ad Week, so I've spoken a few times this week, but I was the most excited about coming and doing this event. One, I think the Festival of Media is just an amazing event. But two, and I echo what the speaker said before, is that I think the pace of change in Latin America is faster than almost any other place in the world. And some of the work that we've been doing in Latin America overall is some of the best work that we've done in the world. So I'm very excited to talk about some of that and to be here with you guys today. Really quickly, I am Bonin Bough. I'm Vice President of Global Media and Consumer Engagement. I work for Mondelez International. Mondelez, for those who don't know, was formed when we split from Kraft in October of last year. It's a brand new name. It means delicious world, and we have a single goal, which is delivering delicious moments of joy. We own brands like Oreo, Cadbury, Toblerone, Trident, Stride, Lacta, so on and so forth. So think of us as the Nabisco portfolio, the Cadbury portfolio, and the Lou portfolio, primarily in Europe. We are the world's largest snacking company. And so as the world's largest snacking company, when we split, we really wanted to think about where are the opportunities for us now that we moved from kind of a grocery to an impulse-driven product. What were some of the opportunities for us to leverage new platforms in order to drive impulse behavior? And so that began our quest in terms of looking into mobile as a viable platform. And one of the first things I did was I started thinking about where mobile is at, and I realized that it was so nascent. So we all know that 25% of media is consumed on a device, on a mobile device, but yet less than 1% of all advertising spending is done on a mobile device. And in fact, when you look at it, this is what the boardrooms of many organizations look like. So there's somebody at the front, usually a CMO, who says, I think we might need a mobile strategy. And then finally, somebody looks up from their mobile device and says, sorry, did you say something? But it's not only a representation, I like the laughter, I'm gonna need more laughter. No, it's not only a representation of boardrooms, it's actually a representation of our society. So we have become the most distracted society in human history. But the interesting thing is, people will not tell you that they are distracted. Instead, they'll tell you, I'm multitasking. Don't worry about it. Keep talking to me, I'm multitasking. Well, they're lying to you. And there was actually a study done by the American Psychiatry Association, and what they did was they took two groups. They asked one group to use a mobile device and multitask, and they asked the second group to smoke marijuana. There was a 10-point drop in those that multitasked, which was twice as much as those that smoked marijuana. So the point is, you're better off being a pothead than pretending that you can multitask. But even in the face of these dramatic issues that society is facing, I still get the same question. But Bonin, is mobile at scale? I said, okay, so let's look at the numbers. There are 7 billion people on Earth, 5.1 billion own a cell phone, and only 4.2 billion own a toothbrush. Which means that 1 billion people didn't receive the text message on the importance of hygiene. But is it growing fast enough? I said, okay, again, let's look at the numbers. It took 38 years for radio to reach 50 million people. It took 13 years for television, 4 years for desktop, and just 2 years for the iPhone. Not even phones overall, just the iPhone. And if you actually think about what's happening now, the iPhone might actually become only the third most important iOS. OS, followed by Android, Microsoft, and then Apple. I love this next slide because it really talks about continued. It says, honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. So even our religious institutions understand the challenges that we as a society are facing. How many people in here have thought that their phone was vibrating, and when they reached it in their pocket, they realized it wasn't ringing at all? Raise your hand. Raise them high. Okay, good. You're not alone. In fact, it's a disease. Sorry, it's a disease, and it's called phantom vibration syndrome. And what they say is that people who suffer from this regularly experience tactile hallucinations, something similar to what meth addicts face from withdrawal. So, there's another study that's interesting, and it says that using social media on a mobile device is as addictive as cocaine. As addictive as cocaine. So Facebook and Twitter might just be gateway drugs, and there's some guy in a dark alley saying, I just need 140 characters. Please just give me a status update. Send me a status update. And while we're strung out on technology, mobility is accelerating at a pace we've never seen. This is the man we have to blame. Nice, innocent-looking Mr. Mike Cooper. Mike Cooper was a vice president for Motorola, and he invented the mobile phone. What's interesting is that what he thought he was inventing was a device for people to communicate via voice. But what he didn't realize is that he was creating a world of connected devices where mobility would change the way organizations and people interact forever. There's a study that says that every single product in your grocery store will be connected to the internet by 2020. So if you think about that, if we sell 8 billion products a month, it means that we might become the world's largest technology company. And so that's what worries me, because as I look across the halls of organizations that operate or look just like ours, we don't look like the world's largest technology companies. Our people don't feel like they work at Cisco. We don't think like Google. We don't operate like Facebook. So how do we make sure that we're ready for the transformation that's ahead of us? And so one of the things we decided to do was really put a stake in the ground and focus resources on mobility. And so that came with our commitment to getting to 10. So as in the introduction mentioned, this is not 10% of just our digital spending. This is 10% of our holistic media budgets, getting to 10. But we knew that we had to give a really clear roadmap. It wasn't good enough to just say, hey guys, get to 10, and then people, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm buying text messages. So we wanted to give them a really focused investment strategy, which also speaks to where we think the opportunities are for us, specifically as a snacking company. So the first is video equivalency. So we know more and more and more video is being consumed. I keep holding this up as if it's my phone, but anyway, you get my point. More and more video is being consumed on a mobile device. And at the same time, we're losing eyeballs on traditional television from an engagement standpoint. So how are we going to continue to increase that reach opportunity? One of the big things we faced was video costs were so different than traditional television. So first we had to move a significant amount of money over so that we could put pressure on the pricing. But I think the most important thing we had to do is we worked with our global agencies to make sure that we could plan it very similar to how we plan TV. So instead of looking at TV and then mobile video on the bottom of a media plan chart, we wanted to make sure that we were actually looking at video as one product and looking at it planned across the board. And so that's the biggest shift I think we made process-wise and conceptually. The second is social TV. And I'm just getting numbers again today. I keep getting numbers around social TV. So one of the things we saw was that over the last 5 years, globally, we've hit a point of diminishing return, according to our marketing mix models, year over year from our television investment. And it's not because less people are watching necessarily, or our creative has gotten bad across the board globally. It's because people are less engaged than they used to be. Now, we all know the stats on people using 3 screens, their laptop, their mobile, so on and so forth. What we're not thinking of is that the moment our commercials come on, it actually signals to you, oh, it's time for text, it's time for email. And that same distraction that the pothead versus the person who is multitasking has is the challenge that people have when our spots are on and they're doing this. Are they really taking that in? So we could see that as a negative. But instead, we said, you know what? That's probably a positive. And so we focused efforts on participating in social conversations or on direct mobile second screen experiences over the last year. The first is, on average, we see 2x the effectiveness of our television spot when we're running in social at the same time. So if you think about this, if the average spend for a CPG in television is 90% of their budget, imagine if you could make 90% of your budget work twice as hard. That's a transformational unlock. We're starting to see huge intent lifts, purchase intent lifts, driven from our participation in Twitter at the same time as our TV spots are running. The bottom line is, we believe that social TV adds a layer of engagement to television that has never been there before, and we see it as a unique opportunity to transform our marketing mix. The third piece is impulse purchase. The beautiful thing about this phone is it is the one device that you have with you across the entire consumer journey. So as you're walking by that convenience store, if I can target a message to you to drive you in to go buy gum, the likelihood of you actually doing it is greater because you're close to a point of convenience of purchase. So that's what we wanted to focus on. If you look back, historically, I could run a TV spot in morning news, and I could see direct lift at convenience for gum purchases. The problem is, who watches morning news anymore? So that entire behavior is gone. So we said, well, what are those new behaviors? This is the device you have with you during your commute. This is the device you have with you during lunch. This is the device you have with you when you're in-store shopping. And so what we found is that we can actually drive 10% increase if I target you in and around a convenience store. I can drive 22 to 32% increase if I target you in-store. And if you think about the in-store piece, why that makes sense is because 2/3 of purchases are unplanned in grocery. So if I can just eke my way into that consideration set at the closest point of buying, I have a huge opportunity to win that battle. The last piece is loyalty. So invest in loyalty platforms. We have never before been able to have a relationship direct with the consumer. Think about it. We work with our retail partners, our amazing retail partners, but they have the only loyalty relationship with the consumer. So they have the loyalty card, they have the circulars there, the consumer is loyal to the retailer. But now, because the device is in their hand, I can offer them the opportunity to scan POS, or to text in, or the ability to scan our packaging directly. I'm going to show one example of how we've actually used it to migrate purchase from product to product in a loyalty-driven fashion. So huge unlock opportunity for us to have a direct one-on-one loyalty-driven relationship with the consumer. So those are the 4 pillars that we really wanted to focus on. As a result of that, we've launched a number of programs, which I will start to show some examples of now. The first program is what I talked about, the Catalina. So what we did with Catalina, what's nice about this is it was about 3,000 stores, about 10% of the purchasers in those stores. Catalina is rolling out scan and bag. And so basically it means you scan the product, and then you put it in your bag, and you leave, and you check out paying with your mobile phone. Which is great, because then when people scan cheese, we would go, we like cheese too, but it tastes a lot better on a Ritz cracker. Or people would scan milk, and we say, you know what goes great with milk? Oreos, of course, go great with milk. So why don't you buy that? So what we saw here was a 22 to 32% lift in store that we've been able to replicate with platforms even outside of Catalina. But what I thought was interesting, and I get this question all the time, people tell me, well, mom doesn't use the mobile phone. It's so weird, because I think we have this perception of mom like 30 years ago with like the mom jeans on and not hip, not cool, really boring. And I'm like, mom is like the hippest, coolest person in the world. She's a more trendsetter than you. You're wearing mom jeans, you just don't know it. Anyway, so what we found here was that the core user of this technology was mom. And it was mom who was 25 to 40. And the reason why she said she used it was, one, it was super convenient. It made her life easy. She could go in the store, scan, scan, scan. She could walk out. 2, she was a little controlling, so she could pack the basket how she wanted. Her eggs weren't in the wrong thing with the fish, so on and so forth. But 3, she said it helped her manage her purchases in terms of what it cost, or what she was up to in terms of a total, so that she knew how much more money she could spend, which is amazing because it provides that extra buffer of opportunity for impulse purchases. So huge. And when you think about the retailer, what the retailers look at is the ability to take resources off of the front line and put them back into store to work with consumers more. So we're going to see, and Walmart's already announced this, so you're going to see all the major retailers go this way. So Our plan is to be prepared to take advantage on a continual basis. The next is a video. Oops, I'm lying. It's not a video. The next is a mobile game. We actually just won Mobile Marketer of the Year from MMA. This app won as well. What this app is it's a mobile game called Twist, Lick, and Dunk. Really simple mechanism. The cookies fly up from the bottom. You twist, you lick, you turn around, and you dunk it. The story of this is pretty simple. There were 3 brands who wanted to build mobile games. 2 brands spent a pretty significant amount of money. They received 33,000 downloads and 55,000 downloads, respectively. We said to them, look, don't go to a traditional agency. Let's go find a game partner. So this speaks to the message from the last speaker in terms of work with the experts. We said, find a game partner that actually does this for a living. They went one route, we chose a separate route. For very minimal investment, what we did was we went to the game creator and we said, here's the 3 things that we want done. 1, don't desecrate the Oreo cookie. Please, we will all lose our jobs if you mess with the Oreo cookie. 2, if you can get the ritual of twist, lick, and dunk into the game, amazing, but it's not a necessity, because the thing that is necessary is number 3. Make sure that the game makes money. Monetize the game. So here's all the assets. You guys go build the game. And in fact, what we did was we paid for the production, and then we take a rev share, a pretty small rev share of all the profits that are made. So what you don't see is that in the bottom of the game, we actually run banner ads. So we allow people to buy banner ads. So people are buying an ad within an ad, which is really kind of strange on a totally different level. And then we also allow people to buy virtual power-ups. So to date, there have been $70,000 worth of virtual Oreos purchased. In some cases, I think people have probably purchased a virtual Oreo who might have never purchased a real Oreo before in their life. The game will be cash positive within the next month. We have 4 million downloads. Number 1 game in 7 app stores, top 10 in 40 app stores. 2 billion Oreos have been dunked, and we have 200,000 daily active users. To put that in perspective, on average on our Facebook page for Oreo, which is about 34 million, we get about 40 to 60,000 daily active users. So this is almost 3x that on a lot smaller base. Highly engaged, and people have spent about 100 million minutes inside of the game. The next thing I want to show is a Trident program that we did. I'm going to let the video go, then I'll come back and explain.
We at Trident are so excited about this partnership with Fuse and Twitter. Historically, what's happened on TV has driven the conversation in social media. Today, what we're about to do is use what's happening in social media to help drive television.
Media consumption for millennials these days is becoming more and more complicated, more and more diverse, and more exciting. We at Trident are committed to being part of the multi-screen environment, and we are committed to leading and helping our consumers engage with our brand.
No more making creative for billboards or 30-second spots or magazine ads that take weeks and weeks and weeks. How do you create thousands of little pieces that tell stories or different stories that accumulate to making the impact on the consumer that you were looking for?
This program really takes content creation to the next level. We're actually looking at the data at Twitter, identifying those trending topics. Fuse's team is going to be sorting through this data and coming up with those really interesting stories. People will be responding, driving an amazing conversation and editorial voice around what's happening, and then that actually will come to television. So that cycle of TV to Twitter and back to TV is something that we haven't seen before.
Welcome to the Fuse Studios. This is where we shoot Trending 10 and get the world up to speed on what's happening with music on Twitter. This is the Fuse control room. In order to get a show like the Trending 10 on the air every day, we've kind of changed the workflow process from the studio down here. Starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, people are coming in and combing through things that are spiking in the heat tracker. A team putting together and writing stories and getting a clip up online right away just to get more content out daily and closer to when the action's happening. So really, it's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week information exchange with consumers.
What's
so exciting about this partnership is that not only has Fuse reinvented what it means to create a studio, but we're also reinventing our creative approach and what it means to be able to deliver messages in real time that are specifically relevant to the moment and to the consumer that we're talking to.
So, I just want to break down the program so you guys kind of get a sense of where our head is at and why this was such an important program for us. So first, what we wanted to do was we really wanted to reinvent television. So we looked and we said, right now, TV programming drives social conversation. It's actually one of the largest driver of social conversation. But imagine if you created TV programming that started from what was actually being talked about at that moment. We know that music is the #2 talked about topic on Twitter, the #1 for our target group. And so what we wanted to do was take the mass amount of music conversation that was out there and see if we could harness that into a new format. So we created a heat tracker with Fuse TV and Twitter using the Twitter pipe. Basically what it does is it shows us the delta between conversations. So instead of just looking at the total number of conversations, because if you did that, Justin Bieber would win every single day, this looks at what the difference is, the delta, so we know it's actually a trend or something that people care or that's interesting. And then we take those top trends and we create, so that's done at 7:30 a.m. We create a show, a half-hour show based on what's being said. And then we take that half-hour show and we cut it up into smaller video pieces and we release 22 pieces of content throughout the day. That content might adjust slightly based on the conversation that's on Twitter. So we take it from Twitter to TV, then we put it back into Twitter. Just using Fuse alone, we would have been able to reach 18% of our target demographic. But when we add Twitter underneath that, from a reach standpoint, we're now able to reach 50% of our target demographic. Again, very cost-effective distribution. But more importantly, we're able to reach them with a video product during a time of day when you usually can't reach them with a video product. So we're able to reach them in the morning on their commute, during lunch, via Twitter. And that's how we're distributing, our videos that are very short and very mobile. The other thing it allowed us to do was then start to play with real-time content creation. So when you look at those 22 pieces of content, on the front of them are 6-second vines, 6-second ads that are relevant to the specific piece of content. So again, if it was Justin Bieber, we might use gum to make an outline of Justin Bieber's face, and then you'll get a quick splash message, maybe of a flavor, or we're testing. More importantly, it gave us a lab to begin to test the connection between TV and social and content creation at large, en masse. And that's what I think is the most exciting thing. And as a result of that lab, so many new projects have been spawned. So we decided to go beyond just our Vine creation and start to use the power of Vine, which are these new Vine creators that are coming up. One of the campaigns that we ran years ago called Pay Me in Layers. I think it was in 2011. Pay Me in Layers. One of the topics that we see trending on Twitter from Trident is pay me in layers, pay it in layers, pay it in layers. And so we figured, hey, let's see if we can resurrect an old campaign in a very new way. So taking an insight from conversation on Twitter about what consumers are talking about and then trying to create creative around it. Let's see the vines.
Great sensation, lemonade collaboration. I'm a player with layers, richest in the whole nation. Great sensation, lemonade collaboration. I'm a player with layers, richest in the whole nation.
See, here's another
Layers of riches, the world is delicious. That's how I roll with the strawberry citrus. Layers of riches, the world is delicious. That's how I roll with the strawberry citrus.
And then there's this one.
All right, guys, you got the job. And we're gonna pay you in layers.
Okay.
All right, guys, you got the job. And we're gonna pay you in layers.
And then there's one more because I can't see.
Layers of flavor, that's how the world gets paid with the strawberry citrus grape lemonade. Layers of flavor, that's how the world gets paid with the strawberry citrus grape lemonade.
So before I talk about the numbers, so yeah, really funny stuff. There's a ton of them. So what we did was we went out to content creators who were the biggest Vine creators, and we asked them to create for us. At the same time, we had an idea. We said, hey, maybe we use one of these and do the first ever 6-second television spot. But we didn't want to just select on our own. So I think creative is being transformed because of numbers. And I think that the marketers that realize that are those that are going to win. So there was a day when you would sit in a room and you would say, I believe that this creative right here is going to be holier than thou. Let's go blast it from the mountaintop and our followers shall walk into stores in droves and buy our product. But now, because you have real numbers in front of you, you can actually test in real time what creative is actually resonating with the consumer base and then spend to amplify that. So what we did was we went out and we tested the vines, and we said, okay, when a vine reaches 100,000 views of these 10 that we're testing, then we'll choose that one, and that's the one that will run on television. So that very last one that you saw was the one that broke 100,000, and now we ran that on TV. The other interesting thing is now we're seeing it being played back. So people are knocking off vines of, layers of flavor, and so they're knocking off the vine. So we're seeing our consumer base repeat it back to us. We have huge growth on Vine as well. So Trident engagement is up. Our revines are the numbers that we're looking at most. So we're revine more than any of the other brands that are on Vine, as well as our total average comments. But what I think is more interesting, because usually I try to focus on talking about sales lift, because I believe that numbers really matter. This program is a little early, so I don't have direct sales lift. But what I do have is from a control and expose study that we did. So first, greater relation to the brand from the work that we're doing on Twitter, and a 3% increase in intent to purchase, or at least reported intent to purchase. So again, having impact. But given my time, that led us to structure a deal with Twitter, a global partnership. But what was different about this global partnership, it wasn't about pricing, it wasn't about any of those things. What it was about was access to talent. So what we knew was that Twitter is one of the platforms that are iterating the fastest. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to have the folks that are actually driving and creating that change be as close to us as possible. So what we set up was embeds. So now in our offices in Brazil, India, US, and the UK, on a weekly basis, we have a Twitter person embedded in our building working with our teams. But even more than that, and I tell my teams all the time, I could care less about you working with them. Just go to lunch with them. Because I think just casual conversation will help to transform our culture because they think so much different from us. Speaking about culture, the big question is what are we doing in Latin America? I'm going to show a program that is actually in process, I believe still right now, today. If not, then it finished last night. It is called Mobile Futures. And so what Mobile Futures is it's our mobile accelerator. We actually launched it in October in the US, and we just launched in Brazil 3 months ago. What the point of the mobile accelerator is pretty simple. One, identify startups in the marketplace that have the opportunity for us to partner with. So we do an open call. We gave some key categories: social TV, mobile at retail, and impulse buying. Key categories that we wanted to explore. We asked for startups that were 3 years or less, but also had some level of funding, and had shovel-ready technology. So it wasn't about just here's a good idea. We actually needed technology that we could use off the shelf. We had 300 submissions. 22 came in and came in and presented to the teams. Again, what's great about that is you get 22 entrepreneur startups that are showing you what the future of mobility looks like, and the entire organization has a chance to see that. We haven't selected all the pilots yet, but in the US, we chose 9 brands and 9 startups. So we had 9 brand, 9 startup combinations. And so then the goal is the 90 days is to operate at the pace of a startup. So they were then responsible for rolling out pilots into the marketplace within 90 days. And so if you think about this, a CPG of our size to have 9 pilots in the marketplace within 90 days, 9 separate startups, 9 separate brands is pretty tremendous, and we did that in the US. And we're more excited for what our capability is to do in Brazil. But I think the one thing that's most important about this project is that we didn't just want the brand team to say, okay, great, this startup, and then hand it off to the agency and say, hey, go do this. We wanted to actually change the culture, change the mindset. So we talked a lot about culture transference. That's what I care a lot about. You have to build the right culture for organizations to win of this next generation. And so what we did was we had the brand directors go and work for the startups for up to a year. For up to a week. There was a great article, a year. Here, go work for a year. No, up to a week. There was a great article that was written about the US program. And what it said was, it said alongside a long table at Waze, Waze being one of the startups that were just bought by Google, sat Catherine Schieffer, who is somebody who works for us. Set Catherine Schieffer, and she worked with Noam Barden, the CEO of Waze, to look at comps and to review plans. But the difference is Catherine Schieffer doesn't work for Waze. She actually works for Mondelez International and went on to explain the program. But I think that encapsulates what we were trying to do. And I will tell you, every single person who came back from there said, wow, oh my God, Bonin, should I go work for a startup? I was like, do not go work for a startup, because if 9 people quit immediately, I will definitely lose my job. But a week later, they realized I don't have to go work for a startup, because instead I can bring those cultural principles here and I can help our organization change and win. The other thing I tell people, and all the pilots, great results, the other thing I tell people is that for those 9 brand directors are forever changed. So when somebody now brings them a mobile program, they're going to be more likely to buy it. So the challenge is most senior executives can have a gut reaction to whether a television spot is good or bad. But if you show them a mobile execution, they don't have that same gut reaction because they've never experienced. They haven't been brought into this world. They're not sitting in here with us on a continual basis. So those are the experiences that we wanted to make sure that we shaped for marketers. We've partnered with some of the best both digital and venture partners in Brazil. Here's our list. So that's the other piece, is making sure that we're a part of the community and supporting the community. And lastly, we've brought 5 of our most beloved brands to the table to partner with startups during our Brazil Mobile Futures. At the end of the day, I believe why this is so important is because the best way to truly predict the future is to invent it. And we want to be a part of that invention so that we're not stuck behind the curve. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I am done, and thank you.
Please, come along.
Okay.
I want you to breathe now.
Okay. I'm breathing.
I want all of us to breathe as well. It's pleasantly exhausted to listen to you. Fascinating.
Thank you.
And I think what's incredible is that, you know, I asked that question before about we need to rethink the formats. You are rethinking them. The point-of-sale example you show, the Vine examples, the Fuse television, and of course the gamification, great examples. But that's very much targeted at millennials, chewing gum consumers, and so on. Does your strategy change? Do your formats change when you, try to market some of the other products? Perhaps Toblerone, which is aimed at an older audience.
Yep. So, you know, at the end of the day, my 85-year-old dad, the only way we talk to each other is over text message. So in our minds, as we look at truly the consumers that we're going after, there's not really that big of a divide anymore in terms of usage and non-usage. But we do. This is why I talked about the mom piece, because mom is still our major consumer. And she is very mobily active. So when we target mom, mobile is a huge piece of that. As you get up to the more premium brands like Toblerone, what we're looking for is mobile activations, but just in different places. So we would activate Toblerone in airport, for example, with mobility, maybe a little higher affluence level, you know, a little more premium consumer. So it's less about not choosing mobile as a channel and more about choosing where and how we use mobility to reach that different consumer.
And no pun intended, of course, but we talked before about the fact that in mobile, the secret is to understand that people are snacking, yes. But in your case, I mean, less is more, it seems, when it comes to mobile.
I think less is more. You know, we're all learning. So we're playing with different formats, we're playing with native, we're playing with integration. So I think we're learning. I think Gary said something interesting in Gary Vaynerchuk, who was in the video. He said, what if we created micro pieces of content that on aggregate roll up to a bigger share of voice than our brands currently have? And I think there's something interesting about that strategy. We did that on the Nilla brand just using Facebook. And we've never had a brand where we've done nothing else in isolation, and that brand's up 6 months year to date, 10%, just using Facebook. And the last month that we did the most spending, it was up 12%. So we're starting to see that micro content strategy really come to life.
We have time for one question because we need to catch up with the lost time. Right here in the foreground, yeah? Anybody in the back?
Here comes a tough question, ladies and gentlemen,
right.
just so you know.
Let's hear it.
It's always a pleasure to listen to you. You mentioned already as part of your mobile strategy the loyalty program, and I think that mobile right now makes the bridge between the online and offline. And still in all of the companies, we have on one side the marketing and media community and the other one the sales one. But mobile is the one that can combine all of this and making that bridge on e-commerce and so on. So I would like to hear a bit more on how you are bringing these conversions in Mondelez.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, this is the global head of media for Unilever, and they are arguably a better mobile marketer even than us. So especially with anyway, well, I won't go into the programs, but I think that, so I think this device is the closest device to purchase. I think we haven't really cracked the e-com side.